Welcome to DevCast. I'm your host, Ryan Doyle, and today I'm fortunate enough to be joined by Mr. Bertie Russell, Managing Director at Russell Simpson. Today we're going to be covering such topics as, Bertie's background, market insights, and just what it's like to work with 6 siblings every day in the office. Russell Simpson are a phenomenally well-renowned business across PCL, and I'm going to be finding out exactly what it is that makes them so special. Let's get into it. Wanted to say a huge thank you to Pavilion Club, who allowed us to film at their stunning flagship location, 64 Knightsbridge. Whether you're a creative startup or part of a larger corporate business, they offer a premium spin on co-working environments with 4 very unique locations across London. Reach out to the team and take a tour today. Hi Bertie, how are you?
Very well, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. Absolute pleasure. I think we're going to cover multiple different topics, but one I would like to start with is your background and kind of how you merged it into real estate. I think we all know, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I left uni and didn't take a day off and joined my dad at Russell Simpson at the age of 21, and it was the time just before the 2008 crash.
I saw that, yeah.
So we had like a month of good exchanges and completions, and then we had a year of the darkest time I think anyone's ever seen. So I actually didn't do a deal in 12 months.
Yeah.
And it was probably an incredibly foolish move for me to be an estate agent. I was a very reserved, shy person that really didn't like meeting new people.
Because you studied, what was it, history and the arts?
History of arts at Leeds.
Yeah.
Love art. Actually, all of my siblings, pretty much all of them have either studied history or art. And I actually, before I started work, I went to my dad and said, look, I really want to work in the arts. So he set me up with about 4 or 5 meetings with some of his clients. And all of them basically said, look, your dad's business is amazing. You can develop all of the skills there that you need to buy and sell art and to meet the right people and see the art. So go into that, learn the skills, and you can always transition.
Yeah.
And here I am, 17 years later.
You didn't fancy waiting a year beyond the crash for everything to settle down a bit?
Well, I mean, I'd taken a year out before I started uni.
Yeah.
So a lot of my mates had already started work, and a lot of my mates were really struggling to find work. And it's an interesting time to start because a lot of my mates ended up becoming entrepreneurs because they couldn't find jobs.
Sure.
And a lot of them have been really successful in quite wacky industries. So I felt really lucky to have a job. And if your parents have got a business, for it to be in London, when you're 19, 20, 21, to be in London is quite fun.
Yep.
To be looking around amazing properties is quite fun. And to be meeting people buying amazing properties is quite glitzy. The glamour of it's quite fun for a post-uni person. And yeah, I was just lucky to have a job, to be honest.
So your one's quite unique in the sense that the question I'm keen to ask is what learns from your early years or educational years that you feel have had a bit of a good steer in terms of where you are now. I'd imagine a lot of that is being around and growing up around your father, but was there anything from uni that helped along the way?
Yeah, so my mum and dad met. My dad helped my mum buy her first house in Chelsea many, many years ago. She then set up our lettings business. So for the first 10 years of my life, we lived in Chelsea. My parents they'd come home for bath time, put us to bed, and then they'd go back to the office till midnight. And it was all property. I didn't really know anything else. It was just all we knew was property. Every time we were driving down the street, it'd be talking about that house or this flat or this rental or this tenant. So all I knew was that. But I think the biggest thing that influenced me and my life is being part of 6 children. I'm one of 6 kids, and I'm the eldest of 6 kids. And the 4th child was born when I was still 3. So me and Jake are 11 months apart. We had 2 weeks at the same age. It was just past a week or so ago. And my first memory at 4.5 was my mum getting me out of bed at 3.5 and coming downstairs, making the bottle, me feeding the 3rd and her feeding the 4th. So I think I've had I've got this huge problem with responsibility. I'm very responsible, very responsible guy.
Now it makes sense why you've actually got 3 children, because I've got 2 and I couldn't have a third.
Yeah, it's the best thing that's ever happened. I'm sure it's the same with you and everyone that's had kids.
Absolutely.
But it was tough when it started, and yeah, I'd love another one. It's so amazing being part of a big family, and you I think you'll know this with 2 kids, even with 3 kids. There's a little bit more chaos than 2 kids.
Yeah.
But you can still kind of manage it.
Yeah.
At 6, you can't manage it. And so you need to delegate some responsibility to some of the older kids.
Yeah.
And I think me and some of my older siblings took on a lot of that responsibility, and I suppose sort of leadership, and maybe some. I mean, the position I'm in now is very clearly based on my childhood.
Yeah, so it just mirrored it.
Yeah.
And do you feel like, I'm sure you get asked this question a hell of a lot, do you feel like you've had to prove yourself to your father, to your mother? Do you feel like you've had to prove yourself to the wider industry at times?
Yes.
I mean, you've very much done that now, but in the early days.
I still don't feel I've done it. I still, I think when I joined the business, it was 30 years old, and everyone I met was just overwhelmingly positive about my dad and my mum. My mum had been out of the industry a bit by that time, but everyone remembered her. And I was not a salesy person. I was a very quiet and reserved person. And I felt there was a lot of pressure in the first year or two, particularly not doing a deal for the first year. And I felt a huge amount of pressure to live up to their skills and reputation. And what I've learned now is I'm not them. I'm very different from them. I probably have some skills that they don't have as well. They've definitely got a lot of skills that I don't have. And I think probably, a little bit in the industry. People have been, it's such an amazing industry you work in. All of the people are so, it's really not that competitive. You need a bit of competitive tension in sales, and there's obviously that, but it's a really warm community. And I think it helped being Alan's son.
I feel like you may feel it's not competitive, but outside the Russell Simpson walls, it definitely is.
I know, yeah. We're probably the least competitive.
You guys just attract, like, working together and all this nicey.
Yeah, so we like that. But I don't know. We deal with we leave a lot of buying agents, a lot of surveyors, a lot of fantastic lawyers, a lot of other agents. We have we refer a lot of agents to come on board jointly with us, and vice versa. Yeah. So there's a lot of trust and respect between people in the industry. And I think that people had that for me automatically because I was Alan's son. And that was great, but there was also pressure behind that. It was like, you can't mess up. And yeah, now it's, I still feel like I'm 21, to be honest.
How's the dynamic between the 6 siblings? And you all work within the business?
5 of us work in the business.
Right.
Number 5 doesn't work in the business. He works in the business for 3 years. We're probably all the most unlikely salespeople you'll ever meet, and he is probably the most unlikely. And he was just disarmingly good at sales because he was actively trying to avoid selling things.
Yeah, which works.
It works so well. I had calls from people saying, "I've met this guy, and I think he might be your brother." And he is desperately trying not to sell me the property, but all I want to do is stick with him and find a property with him. Yeah. He works in. He's a breathwork coach. There's a breathwork app, and he's in the sort of well-being space. So we try and get him involved as much as possible. He's been involved he's done some work at Savills. He's doing work quite a lot of the industry, but also he's done stuff for Tesla and Goldman Sachs.
Can we plug the brand? Who is it?
He's called March.
March.
His name is March. He was born in March, and when you've had 5 kids, you end up just turning to months.
I'm sure you've all used the breath coaching at some point.
So yeah, we had him in at the beginning of the year, and we had 50 people at our sort of end of year event, and I was making a 20-minute speech at the beginning. Then we had breath work, and then I had to get up and do another 20-minute speech, and I was very woozy. But yeah, so 5 of us work in the business, and to answer your question, we're sort of a pack. We're not at all competitive against each other. We're fiercely competitive against the world, and we're very supportive of each other. And I suppose that's the culture of that's the culture we try and replicate at Russell Simpson.
Yeah, nice. And there was no war of words in terms of you getting the top seat at any point?
No, I don't think so. To come back to the question you answered me at the beginning, I mean, still now, if we go back to my mum's house and we sit in front of the TV, and I hope my siblings don't mind me saying this, but they'll almost look to me to pick up the remote control and choose the movie we're going to watch.
Yeah.
And
as I do my older sister.
do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's so weird, isn't it?
Yeah,
And thankfully, we're all in roles that really suit us. And I think for the first few years, you're figuring out, or probably first 10 years, you're trying to figure out who you are and what you're good at. And the biggest thing we try and focus on is understanding people really well, what they're really good at. And typically you're really good at things you like.
Yeah.
And I'm in another world, I would have been a wealth advisor or an accountant. I love strategy. I love numbers, love planning.
Yeah.
I'm very diligent, sort of lawyery, accountancy type person, which is not a typical estate agent.
No,
So I think I'm in the right place, and there's no real hierarchy. There's just people doing, best people for the right jobs.
Great. Talk to us about your leadership style. How was that within the business?
So I didn't really know anything about leadership before I took this job. And I think that I've done a lot of soul searching and a lot of research on leadership and management since I've taken the role. And I think that's probably why I now know a little bit more about why I am who I am in terms of being the eldest of 6 children and the upbringing I had. And I read hundreds of business books. I love podcasts. And I really get drawn to watching movies and reading books about inspirational leaders.
Favorite book?
Favorite book? I've got 4 or 5 business books that I just absolutely swear by. There's a book called E-Myth Revisited that completely transformed our business over COVID, all about sort of structures and processes, which for most people is very boring, but it's right up my street. Yeah. There's a book called Unreasonable Hospitality, which is about the number 1 restaurant in the world, and it's about a guy talking about extraordinary service and hospitality, and that's amazing. There's a book called Good to Great, another great book about businesses and leadership, and yes, I'm slightly obsessed with those kind of books.
So you're dragging bits and pieces from all books and just trying to implement them into Russell Simpson.
Yeah, I suppose I'm just drawn to things I'm interested in, and I'm trying to align myself as close as possible to the person I really am. And I want to really try and step out of the limelight and step out of the way of people in our business who are brilliant at their roles. Really listen to what they're good at, and manipulate the team or create the team so that everyone has got a little friction against them as possible.
Yep.
So they're running 100% without any friction in the direction they want to run in. And yeah, I'm very organized. So I have I've got a vision and a structure and a sort of metronomic, just making sure we're keeping on track, but really trying to step out of the way to let people get on and do their thing. So when people ask me what I do, I am often slightly unsure of what I'm doing, because I'm in many ways doing nothing. But hopefully I'm setting a vision. I'm creating a cared for environment where people feel like they've got the space to run and to do what they really want to do, with the support, emotional and structurally, from us as a business and people.
It's almost like you guys are, like, you talk about stepping back. You don't have a bullshit agent within your business. Like that classic estate agent just isn't part of Russell Simpson, which actually I believe makes you so great.
Thank you.
And like, is that if you were going to give any advice to any senior leaders across the industry, or someone stepping away, starting their business on their own for the first time, like would that be the advice, to just, because it almost feels like exceptional service without being in your face?
Yeah. The best thing I've ever done is, over the last 5 years, I've weekly met with a therapist, sort of therapist coach.
Okay.
He worked for his dad and his family business. He then went off and did business consulting for massive banks. He realized that consulting and coaching people in a work environment actually, giving people structural advice on leadership and how to close deals, etc., it all came back to emotional insecurities or traumas from childhood or whatever. And so he left that, he requalified as a therapist, and now he provides this, in my opinion, completely holistic coaching environment to get the most out of you. And the advice I would give anyone having done what I've done is become aware of who you are, know your weaknesses and admit to them, find people to help you deal with those, whether it's a coach so that you can get better, or find people to employ who, we've got such a variety of personality types in our business, and I'll go to different people depending on, which skill set I feel I'm lacking.
Yeah.
And so I now know who I am, what I really am proud of, or what I want to try and achieve that aligns with me. And so every morning I can get up and I'm excited about, I don't go to work and there's no friction between who I am at home and who I am at work. Yeah. It's completely the same. And I think that's the biggest thing that's happened to me.
Do you think that's organic from the being around the family at home and work though?
No, I don't. I think that really helps. Yeah. And I think that one thing we came to the conclusion of is that one of the things we do have is we have the power to create an environment that we all really want to be in.
Yeah.
And shock horror, you want to be in an environment at work that you really want to be in.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be for everyone because it's very much in our image. And so in terms of hiring people and having non-bolshy people, they're the people, we're not really like that. And we don't really find people to be like that. I've no issue with that. But if you don't want friction in your life, then don't employ people that you're going to work every day with that are not aligned with you. So I think if you're very different from me, you'd hate this environment that I've created.
And it's also, like you mentioned, understanding people's weaknesses, but also their super strengths as well. And we've been doing a bit of work at Deverell Smith on that. And it's funny, isn't it? You see so many other businesses within your space and definitely my space where people try and create this perfect 360 person. And it's that's never possible. They've got a super strength. They've got their weaknesses, just play to them. And if we're all aware of which each other's are, then we can work around it.
Yeah, I think awareness is massive. And there's another book I love called Surrounded by Idiots. You heard of this?
Yeah, heard of that one. Yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant. It's a personality profiling. There's disc profiling that a lot of people psychometrics, and it separates people into 3 different categories, and then he's done loads of books, and so you get the basics from that book, and then there's another book he's written called Bad Bosses and Lazy Employees. So employees think bosses are bad, and bosses think employees are lazy. Yeah. And basically it's lack of communication and lack of awareness of what people are doing and who they are. Yeah. And one of the tools in that book was teaching how to write an email to a group of people. I said, okay, so there are a lot of red characteristics, are outgoing, quite sort of blunt, not scared of confrontation. Then there are yellows who are very salesy people, sort of unbelievable with people, less good with detail. And then it goes down to the person who I am, who's more like an accountant, detail orientated. So you write an email, the reds are only going to read the title. They're not even going to open the email.
I'm a red/yellow, by the way.
Great.
You probably worked that out.
Well, I think most people in our industry are.
Yeah.
So you have to write this super bold, eye-catching subject line.
Yeah.
And that might drag some of the reds in. But you need to get the whole message across in that subject line. Then the next line in the email is for the yellows. They are never going to read past that, but it'll be catchy and fun. And then the next part's emotional, and that will be the greens. They'll read the first 2, and then they'll get to the emotional part. And then the spreadsheets and the analytical data that bores the hell out of everyone is at the bottom, because the blues will have read everything.
Yeah.
So I've twice. So I love that book because it helps you understand that everyone's different and we're all coming at things from a slightly different angle. And that's the type of stuff I love about leadership, is to try and the sort of psychology behind it all.
Next question I've got is around high pressure environments and how you kind of cope and manage those situations. I've been to your offices. It doesn't feel high pressured in any way. So do those events happen often, and how do you manage those events?
High pressure environments. I think we all. I mean, it's a very family trait. We are our own worst critics. We push ourselves incredibly hard. We have huge ambitions. No one is gonna give us negative feedback or a kick up the arse better than ourselves.
Yeah.
And most people in our business are the same. So they are working super, super hard. And I mean, one of my colleagues did 4 transactions 2 weeks ago. I mean, and high value, all over 7 million.
Yeah.
And I called him up and I was like, what a week. And he's like, I'm so disappointed. I haven't done enough this year. So, people are putting pressure on themselves. Yeah. I've learned that everyone has a different desire for the amount of pressure they want. Of course, there can be conflict within the business and within the company and the teams, but generally, our main focus is to put our client first. And so you create an environment and a culture and a structure, a payment structure as well, so that, and it's not perfect, but most of the time people can see long term that the decision that's being made is for the good of the client. And if you've bought into that culture at Russell Simpson, you can't really argue against that. And I refuse to have shouting matches with people. I'm just not interested in it. So if someone wants to blow off some steam, that's all cool. Blow off some steam, come back, we'll have a chat about it.
Where's the growth for Russell Simpson? I know you've started to venture into Mayfair now. Do you see domination within London or globally?
I mean, a really interesting part for us in our growth was opening the office in Kensington, which we opened 6 years ago. And we had this great foothold in Chelsea. And I think we were probably quite blinkered. We couldn't quite see. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So we opened up the second office, and it was so exciting to see the growth, because not only were all the numbers increasing, but also our understanding of larger areas, bigger pools of buyers. Buyers were going from this area to that area. I mean, COVID was a fascinating example of that. And our Kensington office, which was only 2 years old at that point, was far outstripping the Chelsea office. Really? When we came out of it, that's where all the massive gardens are and the communal gardens. And we were way up on the Chelsea office. So it was a really interesting thing to see the dynamics of the industry and the market because of the size that we'd got to, or the breadth of location. And we really enjoyed that. So I think the concept of going towards Mayfair, Marylebone, St James's, West End, it feels like an obvious place for us to go. It's sort of the last piece in the PCL puzzle. It's an area where a lot of our clients have come from or gone to, or asked us to help with stuff in the past, which we couldn't really do. We've partnered with a business in New York. Yes. Very similar business to us, very similar family values. We've got very lucky with the timing, with a lot of US buyers coming over here, and that's been, again, an unbelievable experience of understanding how similar their market is to ours.
Who gelled that relationship?
They got in touch with us,
right?
And then we did the Blue in Me did loads of research, and it was just they couldn't be better fitted. It's like a sister company.
Where in the US are they based?
They're in Manhattan.
Nice.
So they deal with Manhattan and Brooklyn. And they're a similar sized outfit. Father set it up 50 years ago, son took it over.
Yeah, nice.
Whole load of family in the business. One of the last remaining sort of independent powerhouses at the higher end of the market. We've got a lot. We've still got a lot to do. So there's a big part of our lettings business has been growing at a really great rate over the last 2 or 3 years since Ed Woolgard joined us, and he's gelled together an incredible team. There's so much more we're going to do on that front. We are entertaining acquisition, something we've never done before, but quite interested in that, particularly for the letting side. Our main focus is to provide the best possible service we can, and what we've seen is every time we've done that, the business has grown organically. New areas, I think we're so early on in Mayfair and Marylebone that we need to see how that goes before we try and do anything else. But
I can see Russell Simpson, Italy.
Italy.
Yeah, I can just see it. It really works, right?
That could be nice.
And that's where the arts comes back into
That's where
it.
the arts comes back. Yeah, I like logistically, anything outside of London, I'm a little bit confused about how that works still.
Yeah.
The countryside I'm quite interested in. We grew up, I spent half of my childhood in London and half in Oxfordshire. Loads of our clients have country houses or have moved to that area. So I could see that maybe. But yeah, we're not looking too far ahead. I mean, I've just turned 39 and I'm the eldest of the 6 kids. So we've got good time ahead of us and we're not in any rush, but you know, we want to keep challenging ourselves and progressing.
What are the key trends you're seeing in the prime/super prime world at the moment? And what's your sort of forecasting for the next 6 to 12 months?
I wish I had a crystal ball. So there's a lot has happened. I mean, we've had major election changes, all over the world. Donald Trump's causing a lot of uncertainty. So are our own government. So are lots of other governments. Uncertainty isn't great for any market, I don't think. Interest rates coming down have probably had a tiny bit of a positive effect. But one of the biggest things that's happened in our market is the non-dom changes and the inheritance tax rules changing for wealthy individuals to be in London. We've definitely seen some people leaving. We've definitely seen a lot of people on planes going around the world trying to find their next destination. Some people have left. Some people have left but kept their homes empty, ready to come back, renting somewhere else. Quite a lot of people have stayed. And we've also had quite a lot of people from other countries come here. There's been a lot of advice for them not to come here for tax purposes, but in terms of education, centrality for travel, and I mean, Europe's such a massive draw. I think we forget this, but if you come from the US or from a lot of places, it's the culture and the more we get into a world of AI and technology, bringing us back to our history and our roots and going to see, I remember my parents took us to Las Vegas when I was 18 and my little brother was 8 and we were staying in the Venetian and he walked around going, "Mummy, Daddy, this is Venice." And they were like, whoa, would you take you to Venice?
Yes.
So there were lots of draws to the UK and I think that we need time to really tell what's going to happen. I think over the next 6 to 12 months, needs-based buyers are very much around. Properties that suit needs-based buyers are doing well. Quantity of buyers has reduced and supply is up, which typically means supply up, demand down, typically means that prices are coming down and they are coming down. And the properties that are really well suited to, let's say, downsizers. So with inheritance tax changing and all these rules changing, it's a really interesting time because quite a lot of very wealthy people kids have left home are selling their big houses, releasing some cash, giving it to their kids. So they need a home to live in themselves. So downsizing properties are really benefiting from this. And the young have now got more money than they've ever had to spend on cool homes. So we're seeing there's trendy areas where young want to be are really benefiting from that. Super prime, sort of top. The rich have never been richer. They typically have never really, unless they are English, they haven't necessarily been in London more than 90 days a year anyway. So we're actually seeing there have been some very, very big transactions and there's some very, very big buyers out at the moment. So yeah, it's an interesting one to navigate, and a bit like COVID when the style of property that was required changed. So before COVID, lots of flats, pied-à-terres were really popular. Then it went to gardens. Now pied-à-terres possibly less in vogue, and probably more homes for first-time buyers. So we get a lot of parents buying for kids. Very lucky kids, 1 to 3 million. We get a lot of downsizers at sort of 5 to 10 million from selling £20 million houses. We've seen a lot of very successful people based here who are buying 10, 15, 20 million pound houses. So yeah, I think it's going to take time. I mean, I think Trump's tariffs are going to be an interesting, what's actually going to come out of those. So it's going to be an interesting time. But I think if prices are correct, then there's a market.
I feel like we just need to continue keeping London attractive.
Yeah,
Because there is a danger that
we've done a very good job of trying to mess that up for years.
Yeah.
And somehow it still keeps doing well.
Yeah.
So I think the Brits are pretty ingenious, sort of adaptive people, and we forget we're still, I think, was it 5th or 6th biggest economy in the world, tiny country. So yeah, I think I'm not one for negativity. I'm one for realism, absolutely. But I mean, I see on social media the negativity about the UK. I just absolutely detest it, to be honest. And good on people for going other places and trying to make something of themselves. And I've got nothing against it, but we are very much here. Love London. Don't want to leave family. We've settled in a place we love, and we want to make the absolute best of it, which I'm positive we can.
Great. If you could change one thing in a state agency, what would you change?
The fees.
Well, you make them more.
Make them more, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, we're the lowest. I met someone on Tuesday and they asked us what our fees are, and I told them, sort of 2%. And they said, "God, wow, that's expensive." I was in Manchester, and they said, "Well, up here they're sort of 0.75, 1%." I was like, "Wow, our 2% is laughed at across the world."
That's your average, is it?
That's
2%.
Yeah, sort of around 2%. Around the world, our 2% is laughed at.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not worried about being laughed at. I've got no ego about that. But no, it's sort of jokingly. I think we're very fairly remunerated, success-based industry.
You mentioned about you have companies that you work with quite closely and collaborate with. Do you think there's enough collaboration within our world, or do you think at times it could? I know you feel like it's not competitive, but it definitely is, and I fear that you guys are the ones in the know, right? You should be collaborating on ideas and possibly helping the government make decisions in that way. And
maybe. We're still a very small business. I don't know what the bigger corporates are. I'm sure they're involved in some kind of government. I hope they are, at least.
We've got a guy, Rob Elder from the Bank of England. He attends. He's a regular attendee of our Banking on the Future events. He comes and gives an idea on the forecasting for the interest rates and so forth. But his job is to go around the country and sit with the corporate businesses and understand what's going on,
okay,
so that he can then go back to the committee. But like that collaborative approach genuinely leads to the best ideas. And it's funny because we host these roundtables with HR people, finance people, and they're so collaborative.
Yeah.
But when you go on the front line, sales, lettings, it's like, I don't want to talk about it with you. Do you know what I mean?
I think the higher the value, the more collaborative it is.
Yeah.
Because there are less buyers, and so you need to collaborate. And I think that at the lower end, you put a property on, there are 5 buyers, you do the deal and you move on. You don't necessarily have to collaborate as much with the competitors or your peers as perhaps you do at the upper end. There's definitely been a change. From my dad's day, and even from when I first started, it was more collaborative, and there was more relationships, and there were some fascinating. I mean, there are still fascinating and very amusing people in our industry. I think when the markets are tough, people collaborate more. When they're really like post-COVID, there were no properties available, and there were tons of buyers. So estate agents at that point wanted to find lots of properties. They couldn't find them, but they had loads of buyers. So there was less requirement for collaboration. And I think people were so unbelievably busy that taking that moment to go and have lunch or do a round table with someone it was impossible. I think potentially, we've never really had a major sort of leadership team, and we are all so busy. I would love to be involved in that stuff. I'd love to be involved. I'd love to see or hear or be involved in some of the more wide-spreading parts of our industry. We're such a niche, though, in the UK. And
yeah, but there's tons of value that you can offer, 100%. And
maybe, I'd absolutely love to be involved in that type of thing. I hadn't thought about it on that scale.
We'll give Rob your number.
I would love to. Yeah, absolutely love to if he's interested.
Could you give us a 30-second pitch for Russell Simpson? Now you're under pressure.
30-second pitch for Russell Simpson. Oh, we're not good at this. I would say that we're a family-run, family-owned business with family values. We treat every client as if they're our mum. Complete care and bespoke service. We really listen to what you want to achieve out of why have you called us? What do you really want to achieve? And we really want to try and give you advice that properly benefits you over the long term. And it's actually very difficult for people to believe that, in all honesty. And so most of our business comes from referral. Most of it comes from people that have actually experienced that and then referred us. But we helped my mum sell her house 4 or 5 years ago, and it was such an emotional process, and it was so specific to her. We tell a lot of people if we honestly don't feel it's the right time for them to sell, better for them to rent it, better them to renovate it for the next 3 months and then come back to us. We'll push things down the line a lot, and it's quite disarming. People are quite shocked and surprised by it. Even people that have joined us from other businesses are quite surprised by it. But I think the benefit we have is, for Alan doing this for 50 years, we've seen that it works. And not only does it work from a business perspective, but it's you go to bed feeling happy that
morally you've done the right thing.
You've done the right thing. And I think what's so exciting is that can be, I personally think that's our secret weapon. It's so unbelievably powerful, and you just need to give it a bit of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Similar in our world. You could jump on the phone and tell people what jobs you've got live, and you're the best person for that job. But the first question we ask is, what do you want?
Yeah.
What do you actually want? And then work it around that.
Yeah.
What's the single biggest challenge you have personally faced since running the business?
The single biggest challenge is trying to find balance. It's probably having children. The best thing that's ever happened, but also one of the most struggling things.
Yeah.
I think, before I had my first child, me and my wife we didn't have a second. There was not a second of extra time to fit anything else in. We were getting up at 5 to do exercise, and we were working till 8, 9 o'clock, and then we were trying to see each other. And I remember thinking, how am I going to fit a child into this? And now I've got 3.
Yeah.
And I think
cool names, by the way. Am I right in saying
Albie, Figgy, and Mara?
Yeah, cool names.
He's called Felix, but he's never been called Felix.
Figgy's great.
Figgy, yeah. He's a complete Figgy as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest challenge, and I think the funny thing is, if I hadn't have had children, I think my solution to all of my problems would be get up earlier, go to bed later, just work harder.
Yeah.
And having children, I had to get a bit more intelligent about how I use my time, and think a bit more about prioritizing things and delegating things and letting go of control of things.
Become a little bit less selfish.
Yeah.
With your time.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. And I've definitely not achieved that yet. And I suspect no one ever does. But I'm much more aware of it now. And yeah, that's the biggest challenge. And I think that will continue forever, because I absolutely love my job and I love the people I work with, but I also love my wife and my kids. And I can't do both full time.
Yeah, absolutely not. I definitely won't be having a third, though. I think you're crazy. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go into some quick fire questions.
Okay.
Ones that maybe you're not prepared for.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you're into sports. Are you into sports?
Love sports.
What's your typical sport?
I'm completely obsessed with a weird game called real tennis at the moment.
As opposed to fake tennis?
Yes.
What?
It's where tennis originated from, and
Right.
Henry VIII built a court in Hampton Court Palace, and it's like a mixture between tennis, squash, and chess. So it's played over a net, but you can hit it off the walls, and then it's got bizarre scoring and very strategic.
It's sounding a lot like paddle at the moment.
It's like paddle, but you really use your brain. It's like learning how to play chess while you're playing paddle. And because it's so different, it took me about 6 months to hit the ball. It's
real tennis.
real tennis.
I've never heard of it ever.
They've only got 40 courts in the world,
Right.
and where I live, there are 4 within 20 minutes of me. So I'm in like the mecca of real tennis. The balls are handmade,
Right.
and the all-time greatest player, who is like Roger Federer, is the guy that runs the club that I'm closest to. So I've had lunch with him. His wife is world number one at the moment, female. He's all-time greatest. So it's such a niche sport, but it's the loveliest community. It's really challenging. And
Well, I was going to ask you who's your favourite sports person, but I'm assuming
no, I'm quite new to that game, so it's only a year old, and I get obsessed. I get obsessed with stuff. So, I mean, running is the thing. I was best at running when I was younger,
yeah.
and I have delved into like crazy detail on running. But I think the sports person I'm most fascinated by is Michael Jordan. I
You've seen The Last Dance.
I actually try and avoid TV because I get really hooked.
Yeah.
But it's the only, I've watched it twice, and every time I've watched it from first episode to last episode in one sitting, and I'm completely obsessed by it. I've now read his books, I've listened to podcasts on him, and I'm currently in the middle of an autobiography of Phil Jackson, the coach
Yes.
of the 90s Bulls team. And if you want to know what kind of leader that I'm interested in, he is epic, like epic leader. And it's Michael Jordan he's kind of too aggressive for me in many ways. But his passion and his ambition is just mind blowing. His mindset's incredible. And reading this book by his coach, you see how as he matures, his leadership style and his awareness of his becoming a team and not an individual that's what made their team. That's what made them win. And yeah, he's
Have you seen another documentary on Netflix, the Redeem Team?
No.
That's the next one, because that's
Redeem
all about
Team.
the American Olympic basketball team.
Okay.
And how the Europeans started to come up, and they then
didn't like
created
it.
this team with like Kobe Bryant and all the rest of them.
Awesome.
And they came together, and they're all individuals that came together.
Like it.
It's really good.
Thank you.
Early morning meetings or late drinks with clients?
Oh, it's going to sound really boring.
Go mornings.
Morning meetings, absolutely every day of the week.
Yeah. I did say, do you want a whiskey or a water? And he was like, water. I was like, great.
No, I love the people I work with. I particularly I find these conversations fascinating. I find connections with clients or peers where you can get deep and really understand people and see what makes them tick. I find those really fascinating. So if I go on a one-on-one with, I had a drink with a peer in our industry about 6 months ago, and we spent 4 hours. I don't know how the time went. Like, we were only meant to be there for 20 minutes, and it was one of the most awesome evenings I've ever had.
Yeah.
So I'm a proper introvert at heart, and I'm detailed. So I like going deep.
Yeah.
And so I like structure as well. So morning meeting, get it done, have my own time, play a bit of real tennis in the evening.
Yeah. Favorite holiday destination? The Venetian?
Venetian, not the Venetian. Just before we had kids, my wife and I decided to leave our jobs and take a year out. And we went backpacking across the Americas for a year. And it was a very cheap, proper backpacking. I mean, I think we spent half of the year in a tent, tiniest little tent together. And it was the most magical time of all time. And weirdly, it's probably just because it's so recent, but last week we rented an RV in Inverness.
Nice.
And we spent 7 nights.
Photos looked amazing.
It was magical.
It's a special place, Scotland. My wife's family are all Scottish.
Are they?
I've been to Lomond, I think.
Yeah. That's a
And
good fun.
I've got memories. Yeah, it's such a nice place.
So, I mean, my wife's also from Kenya. So, I mean, Kenya is a really special place. We spent a lot of time in St. Anton in Austria, family holidays. That's a really, you've got, a bit of lederhosen. No one can say no to that. But yeah, at the moment, having just come back from Scotland and being one of the most memorable holidays with my kids, that's pretty up there.
If you could go, and you're not allowed to say your dad on this one, if you could go into business with anyone in the world, who would it be and what would you do?
Oh, this is going to sound so cheesy. Probably my siblings and do an estate agency.
You can't say that.
No, I don't know. I think people have asked me this before, and I think having now worked with my siblings for so long, I think we could do anything. Like if my dad had been a shoemaker,
Yeah.
we'd be having an awesome time doing that.
Yeah.
And it's just so cool working with my siblings. So yeah, I mean, Elon Musk would be quite fun for a day or so.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos would be quite interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are some amazing leaders out there that I'd love to learn from. But I'm really happy with what I've got in life, and I'm very lucky to work with my siblings and the people I work with. So yeah, industry wise, it almost doesn't matter.
You just love a state agency.
I like the people side of it. I'm fascinated by the people side of a state agency. I love business. So in all honesty, I could change from a state agency. I'd love to challenge myself in a different industry.
Yeah.
So actually, I probably would choose something different, but it'd have to be with my siblings.
It was interesting because I was listening to your podcast with yourself and Jake, your brother, who also studied. I think did all six of you study the same?
1, 2, 3. I think 4 of us studied history of art.
But he was explaining that he found it hard to envisage a life in that world.
In the art world, or
just in the arts, and which then led him to giving a state agency a try, I believe. Because you talk about the traits of the people person.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it's not my world, right? But history and arts, it'd be difficult to get that across, perhaps.
I think the industry, I mean, I'm not a particularly academic person. I'm more practical. I like working with people. I think in arts, there's a very academic side to it that doesn't really suit me. So I think the part of it that would be interesting is the buying and selling and the collecting. To collect, you need a lot of money. Don't have tons of money to do that. I haven't got enough wall space. And I'm kind of doing the same thing in property, buying and selling and dealing with the same people. I think we've fallen, and I think a lot of estate agents have fallen into a career that's wasn't what they thought they were going to go into. But it's
guilty in recruitment as well.
And I think what you do is probably very similar to what we do. You're not stuck at your desk all the time. You're out meeting people. You're engaging with a variety of different things, and no day's the same. So it's if my dad wasn't an estate agent, there's no way I'd be sitting here. But I'm so pleased I am.
Yeah, as am I. If you could own, we ask everybody this, if you could own one property in the world, what would it be and what would you do with it?
What would I do with it? I think I'm a hippie at heart, and my mum bought a piece of land close to where we grew up in Oxfordshire, which it was a small piece of land, meant to put some horses on it. Never happened, and it's still sitting there. The farmer uses it, and it's got a really beautiful view, and I would love to turn it into some sort of commune.
Nice.
I'd love to live in an environment where you have I love this kind of glitzy world that we live in. We're sat in this amazing place in Knightsbridge, and we see these amazing properties. But I also love driving back to the countryside and feeling completely in the middle of nowhere. So my idea with this place, which will never happen sadly, is you drive your amazing car, probably electric, back. It goes underground, so there are no cars visible, and you live in this beautiful, rustic, self-sufficient home where all of my siblings have a house, and then we have one amazing eating place, communal living space where we all come every night to eat and look over the view. I love the idea of having chickens and vegetable patch and natural swimming pool and really natural, back to basics, but with some of the creature comforts.
It's probably the best answer I've ever had, and I think that sums you guys up, because when you listen to that, it just puts a smile on your face, and your brand is just nice, and I think that's why it works. And kudos for you and the family to get it to this stage, and long may it continue. But thanks very much for joining me, Bertie. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having me.